Thank
right,
you
Kay.
all so much for being so patient as we work through the glitches here. So I just want to say good afternoon and welcome to another Fireside Chat with Kirshner Office Furniture. We want to thank all of you for joining us today. We're excited that you're here. I know it's been a while since we've done one, but we're back. So today's Fireside Chat is all about a brand new world. You'll hear from industry professionals in design, architecture, and education. You'll hear what they have to say about working and learning in this brand new world. The chat will run for about 45 to 50 minutes, leaving 10 minutes at the end to answer some questions if there's time. But we will also incorporate your questions throughout the conversation. So if you have a question, please post it in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. So now I'm going to introduce our wonderful panel. One of them, you do not see her picture right now. She's trying to get there. But we're going to start off by introducing Megan Sweeney, Interior Designer and Sustainability Project Manager at the Sherwood Partnership. So we're going to give each one of you guys a minute to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. Megan, if you are on the phone, we'll start with you. Not yet. Okay. So we're going to move to Stacy Scott. Stacy Scott is the Chief Executive Officer at Alliance for Progress Charter Schools. Stacy, you're up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stacy Scott, and I am the Chief Executive Officer at Alliance for Progress Charter School. We're located in North Philadelphia. We have 546 students, and we are a K-8 program. Happy to be here today.
Okay. And then we have Erin Daly Gillespie. She is Interior Design Project Manager at Temple University. Erin?
Hi, I'm Erin Daly Gillespie. I work with Temple University's Planning and Design Group. Our office is made up of a collaboration of a few architects and 2 interior designers. One of them is myself. We are basically in charge of all the campus capital projects renovations for the main campus and the health and science campus, as well as we have 2 satellite ones in Tokyo and in Rome. But we do everything from minor renovations to brand new builds. So.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Jennifer Stark, she is the Vice President of Project Management at Avison Young. Jennifer?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm a licensed architect by training with a specialty in historic preservation, which fortunately I'm able to apply sometimes to our projects. Avison Young's project management team comprised of assistant project managers, senior project managers, and financial analysts. We are owners reps. We do project management and we help our brokers. We work with fit out, new construction, renovation. We do some planning. We do pro formas and budget assessments. Pretty much anything that comes down the pike to help people get in spaces, get into new spaces, make their spaces better. That's us.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. And now I'm going to introduce the moderator for the afternoon, who happens to be the CEO of Kirshner Office Furniture, Brewer Kirshner. It's all you.
So before I start, Megan, can you hear us when you want to talk, Megan, for a minute? Or okay, so I just want to say thank you very much for everyone coming. My name is Brewer Kirshner. I do own Kirshner Office Furniture. I want to thank everybody for listening today. We're up to almost 80 people right now, and thank you for the great panelists that are joining us today. So Kirshner's, as everybody knows, we are 27 people strong. We have a great group of people in King of Prussia office. We also have 4,100 square feet down at the Boris building in Center City. I've been in the business for 37 years, but started Kirshner Office Furniture in 2002. So I'm 18 years in this company with this great people. So again, thanks for being here. So let's get started. So it's exciting. It's a great topic. As everybody knows, it's about working and learning in the brand new world. So Jennifer, I'm going to start with you. So Jennifer, how are companies making the office more attractive for employees to come back to work and onboarding new employees?
Well, first I'd like to say that it's ironic. COVID has actually caused us to accelerate the changes that we were seeing in the marketplace already. But because of costs, and ingrained mindsets, these changes were happening very slowly. But now because of COVID, everybody left the office and we're looking back now at, gee, it's time to make a difference. So companies are looking at their culture and what kind of work they do. Then they look at how their people worked. Is there a lot of collaboration and team effort? How much is socialization an important part of their process? How many tasks can be performed at home or at remote locations other than your central office? These are all questions that have been percolating in the past, but now they're being pushed forward much quicker. The other aspect of work is technology, and everybody knows there are deficits. Nobody can say that their office is perfect. But now when people are trying to do work in locations they're not used to working in, they have to think about, well, what can we do to buff up our technology so that everybody has what they need to do what they have to do. Flexibility to offer support to everybody is another big part of the culture change. So I just have some statistics here. 77% of people who are working from home now say that they would like to continue at least one day a week to work from home. And 52% polled said that they like the idea of hybrid options. So these are things that were not really discussed before. I mean, working from home was if you were sick. Now it's not like that at all. So I really think that the changes that companies are making to try to attract new people and talent have to consider all of these aspects.
Right. It's almost people are working home and they seem happier, but people do want to communicate. They
Yeah.
do want to talk more than they ever have before, right?
Yep.
So, and any other comments on that question? If not, Stacy, let's go to you then. Stacy, how the physical space is changing to accommodate the in-person learning?
So I do agree that people want to talk, and so they're feeling very isolated at home. In our space as a school, we have decided to bring our teachers back into our building. And of course, we had to rebuild our structure to accommodate our teachers, and we now have students in our building as well. So part of that restructuring is making sure that we are incorporating social distancing signs throughout our school. We have had to rearrange classrooms so that we have smaller classrooms for hybrid learning. We've also taken the opportunity to apply plexiglass so that we can divide our students and they can have that plexiglass in front of them. So we have plexiglass with our teacher's desk, our assistant teacher's desk, and our students. And then we had to make sure that we moved our furniture around. And as Jennifer mentioned, technology is also a big part of what we do because some of our kids have decided to return back to school. And so we have a smaller number of students within our school. We have a larger number of students that are still working remotely. And because those students are working remotely, we have to make sure that our technology is up to par, that our broadband has been widened, that we have all of our the apps that we're using, that they're all updated. And of course, we've had to purchase additional computers to accommodate what kids need to do at home. So it's really interesting. It's an interesting way to work. Initially, our school was closed and we were working full remote. But now we have our teachers in the building, and I'm happy to say that they're happy to be here. But we have had to separate the space and build a space where teachers can be safe. So we've had to put some restrictions on visiting other classrooms, congregating in the teachers' lounge, having lunch together. We've had to put limitations around all of those fun things that make a workplace enjoyable.
Yeah, and just to kind of comment on what Stacy was saying, I know at Temple University, obviously we're dealing with an older student population than Stacy is, but one thing that Temple implemented was something called Zoom zones. So these are spaces that we placed in academic buildings where students most of our classes are virtual, just to even provide a change of scenery, or maybe the student doesn't have Wi-Fi access in their dorm or their apartment that they're renting. And these Zoom zones are quiet spaces where students can go in, and there's QR codes located at each of the seats that they're eligible to sit at, and they scan these QR codes and it logs into a system so that we can kind of track the usage of the space. And they're there, they can then participate in either class time or study time. And so that's been something that we never had before that we've now introduced to campus as well.
Good, great. So there's only 4 of us instead of 5 of us. So I'm gonna throw a couple zingers in there and questions and everything. One question I have for really Aaron and Stacy is, how are you keeping up with the government and what they're saying and what they keep on changing and hopefully helping? But how are you keeping up with all that?
Oh, Aaron?
No, go ahead.
We receive lots of information from, of course, state officials. We get most of our communication through email, and there are many Zoom meetings to talk about the way that we should. We've gone basically from making sure that people are being tested to now our focus is on information about vaccinations. And so all of that information is flowing to us through different entities, governmental entities, district. We have partners that are sharing information. And in order to be able to manage all of the information that's flowing into the school, I have decided that, I'm going to build partnerships within the school so that, because I can't attend every meeting, but we have to get everyone involved. So that's the biggest part, is that you really do have to become a team, and an effective team, and a team that is full of communication, so that even if someone else is attending a meeting, like right now a nurse is attending a meeting about COVID vaccinations, and she's there because I couldn't be there today, so I could be here. But then we have to come back and we have to talk about that information that she gathered. So there's lots of information out there, but you have to pull your team together in order to manage it.
Yeah, and just capitalizing again on what Stacy said, we're being in the city, we have to listen to ordinances that are coming from the CDC and then the state, and then Philadelphia obviously has its own regulations on top of that. So from a design perspective, it's just, a delicate balance between all 3 governances.
Right. We're doing it. Yes.
Megan is actually on the phone. Megan, you can hear us, right?
I can hear you all. Yes, I was going to interject once everyone was finished speaking on Brewer's last question. Hello, my apologies. You cannot see me, but I can hear you, and you can hear me now. So
good.
Welcome, Megan. Megan, give us a 1 minute on you and your company for us, please.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Megan Sweeney. I work at the Steward Partnership. I am an interior designer by trade, as well as a sustainability project manager. We focus on kind of large transportation projects and education projects on the architecture side, but we also help owners, contractors, other architects pursue any one of the green building certifications that are around. So that's LEED, WELL, Living Building Challenge, Green Globes. They all kind of have different focuses, and there's now more than ever, I think, a big shift into how we look at our built spaces and, the occupant health in those spaces. So that's a little bit about us.
Good. So Megan, you were first to my question, so I'll laugh, and I still have my opening with you, is saying, let me start the first hard question with Megan. So thanks for being with us. And let me ask the first question if I back up again. My first question is, will the office return from post-COVID-19? If so, what will it look like? And if not, what is being done with these open spaces? So we throw you into a really hard question first.
That's okay. I love it.
Good. You're on.
So actually, our office is an office with an open plan. I still know a lot of offices that have embraced that open office plan. I really don't believe it's going to go away. I think there will definitely be a shift in spacing and how furniture is moved, but that's what's so great about furniture, is that companies now have come up with such dynamic and changeable configurations of their furniture that we can adapt the space and change with the current work climate. So, no, you're probably not going to be squeezing people into, a 3-foot work area right next to somebody else, but workstations can adapt. Glass panels, wipeable panels can be between people, so you have that visual connection, and you're sharing space with people, but you're still maintaining a safe distance. Collaboration will definitely look different. Despite my technical difficulties today, all of these video conferencing and telephone services have definitely made staying connected with project teams easier in this time, but I think people are anxious to go back to work. And I think, with proper cleaning protocols and giving people the opportunity to maybe shift their work time or the amount of people that are in the office at a time, I think we'll be able to enjoy those spaces again.
Any comments on that?
Yeah, I was going to say one thing that we're observing is with less occupants in the office and a rotating attendance, we're looking at less designated workstation space and more temporary spaces where you can go land, but the landing seating is separated much more than it is currently before COVID. So it's just a response to who's coming in now and where are you going to sit?
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. To the same subject, Erin, really is the reconfiguration of the office we're talking about and spreading it out. And then how is the outdoor coming into your plans of when you reconfigure?
It's so funny. So I kind of like to touch on what Megan said. I don't believe the open office is really gonna go anywhere. As much as I think some companies have tossed around the idea of going back to that private office setup of yesteryears, it's just office space is still coming at a premium as far as square footage is concerned, and it's still that open office concept. I feel like we're just too involved now to kind of back ourselves out. However, with the proper spacing, as noted before, it could probably work. And I really think going forward, you're going to see more people on rotations. I don't know if they'll share desks. Maybe they will. There's this whole fear of sharing, I guess, is part of the germs and COVID. But I definitely think that you might have 50% occupancy and people will rotate between home spaces and actual functioning spaces. As far as outdoor is concerned, I think it's a little bit more challenging in your urban environments, like being in Philadelphia, especially for example like Temple or in North Philly. Green space is kind of hard to come by, but we are working to improve that. I have seen examples of some universities and schools moving, weather permitting, education outside, and it's actually kind of a nice breath of fresh air, no pun intended, for some activities to be taken out there, in certain times of the year, especially, in warmer climates where you could probably take advantage of that more frequently. And I even think before COVID, companies are really trying to offer outdoor spaces to their employees to begin with this whole biophilic design and people just wanting it to feel more versatile in their offices. So if anything, maybe COVID has spurred that to be even more important. But again, I think you're just limited depending on where you are in the world with that.
Great, thank you very much. Jennifer, how are companies reacting to the decrease in the office attendance? And do you think it's likely to extend beyond the COVID impact?
Yes and yes. But basically, one of the things we've been doing for folks is helping them basically do workplace intelligence. We call it that. It's analytics. And we have them actually evaluate their current floor space, their square footage, and the layout. And it has to do with the changes in how people are approaching work now. How much square feet do they actually need if their occupancy is now at 50% at any one time? That translates to an even broader look at the holdings that the company has. Let's say you've got more than one office. How many offices do you really need now? Where do they need to be? Can you afford to move to a more lucrative location because you need less square footage? or can you move to a more remote location because you have less people driving in? You can save some money that way. It's interesting, and what we're finding with the analytics is that people are realizing that the workstation format they're used to, the number of conference rooms they're used to, it's being flipped on its head. There's more collaboration space being requested, and less permanent workstation space being needed. Yeah.
Just to comment on you too, for Jennifer, like when we were talking earlier about how we don't think the office will be back to full capacity for the foreseeable future, and there's going to be this flex between working from home and working in the office, I think we shouldn't let it go unnoticed that it might be making the workplace a little bit more equitable for women in particular. You know, some studies I've read have said up to 31% of women take a break from their careers after having families to, you know, because there's no choice in the matter. And a lot of workplaces don't, prior to COVID, didn't really grant the accessibility to take 2 or 3 days from home. And now going forward, that seems like it's going to be the norm for both men and women. And because of that, I think, you know, you might start to see a resurgence of women staying in their fields longer and not necessarily taking these breaks beyond, you know, your typical maternity leaves to raise families and still hold a career. So.
Yeah, that's a great point, Erin. I also want to mention that although we are in our building, all of our teachers are in our building and all of our employees are here, our non-instructional employees are in the building. When it comes to meeting collectively or large meetings, we are not gathering in spaces like conference rooms. We are still Zooming, so we're keeping that social distance in that way. So we are still holding those meetings, but we're just not coming together to do those meetings.
Mm-hmm. I think it's funny how many meetings have now become emails, which is something we always wanted.
How about long emails?
Yeah.
Longer than we want.
Novellas.
Uh-oh, I think our MC froze.
I know.
That makes me smiling.
That's a nice frozen picture compared to some I've seen.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I will keep it going with the next question until he gets unfrozen, okay? So
right.
I'm going to go to Megan. Megan, how important now is wellness and holistic health to the workplace?
I think this is a great question because prior to COVID, I really feel like there was not a focus on the employee or the occupant and their health and wellness. There was a big shift, you know, for how buildings operated and how that contributed to employee wellness, but not really speaking specifically to how they could enjoy the space and how it would benefit them. So I think with this pandemic, it's really shown that in order to get people to want to come back and for it to be safe to come back, that you really need to think about the health of the occupant. And that's going to go kind of beyond your traditional quote, you know, green building things that people have gotten kind of used to seeing. Indoor air quality, I feel like, has been brought into very sharp focus, whether that is through the use of mechanical equipment or UV lights, but even just the materials that you put in a space. You know, everyone is worried about the pathogens and viruses and things that are in the air, but there's also a lot of other compounds and VOCs that we take in on a daily basis that are just part of our built environment that have kind of become commonplace. We don't really think about, but do have large impacts on our immune system, our endocrine system. So I think with the introduction of the WELL standard and that focus kind of shifting from the building to the occupant, that you're going to see a big change now, you know, as we hopefully come out of this pandemic and start returning to shared spaces, how the focus is placed on the occupant in addition to the building, but seeing what that impact is on people as opposed to just the places we inhabit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to also comment on that. So I agree with the air quality, the changes and what we're thinking about the space that we work in terms of the environment. But we also have to consider the mental health that comes into play while we're engaging this pandemic. Some of the things that we are doing at the school is we are doing check-in calls to make sure that folks are okay. When we're home remotely, we do check-in meetings, morning meetings, to make sure that we get our entire school family together before they're off to work with kids. That gives us an opportunity to talk to one another, ask questions. Many people are at home and they're isolated. So, to talk to another person, even if it's on camera, is encouraging throughout the course of the day. We're also letting employees know that we appreciate them. There are many people who are going through very, very tough times, and they're struggling and dealing with a lot in this pandemic. There are people who are losing loved ones, and there are family members who are sick. So we take the time to encourage them. We send flowers when we realize that people are in the hospital or if they've lost a loved one. Our counselors are on board to send cards and things like that. And then the last thing that we are making sure that we are mindful of is to make sure that we are giving extended COVID leave. So if we are tracking COVID, we're tracing and tracking COVID. And if some of our employees have to quarantine because they've been in touch with someone, or if they have contracted COVID, we're not using their sick time. we're literally extending time for them to be in quarantine to get well, so that they can come back to the school and come back healthy. So they don't have to have the pressure of using all of their sick time and vacation time. And I really do believe that those are the small things that people appreciate.
Right.
One of our guests, go ahead, Jennifer. I was going to say.
I had one other thing about the wellness and holistic health, talking about keeping talent and attracting new talent. I was thinking about some of the tangible things that people see, which are like access to healthy snack food in your workplace, sit, stand, desk surfaces so that people can move around, touchless operations for faucets and things like that. Those are the things that people see when they first just walk into a space and they perceive, oh, somebody cares. That's what it's about too.
One of the questions from one of our guests asked, do you have concerns about the impact of toxic chemicals on both health and furniture?
That's a really interesting question, because I feel like, a lot of reps are, they've moved to the virtual format of giving webinars, and it is really interesting to hear why a lot of surface applied antimicrobials, specifically from textiles, have been phased out or removed because it is harmful to the occupant. And they've really been reviewing and stressing their cleaning procedures. Like, yes, we say this is bleach cleanable, this is the formula that you need to use, but they're also really stressing you still need to wipe down that material with warm soapy water after. You can't leave those chemicals on those surfaces because it will continue to eat away at the textile or the wall covering. So there's definitely an emphasis on how buildings are cleaned and what we use to clean them. It can't always just be this very abrasive, harsh chemical, because it's not good for the occupant, and it does and will impact the material over time.
And we have to be extra careful because we have kids in the building. So not only does it have to be CDC approved, but then we also have to make sure that it's not extremely toxic for our students. So a lot of thought goes into purchasing, what we purchase to clean our building.
Laura, unmute.
His first rodeo either.
He's just having a hard time today, so it's okay. So
That's
we'll
okay.
move to the next question while you're trying to unmute yourself. So this question actually is going to go to you, Stacy. What can we expect in terms of technology in buildings, offices, and schools? And Megan, you can, you can comment after that as well as Jennifer too. Anyone, any of you all.
Much of what we mentioned, just making sure that your devices are up to date. In our case, we're making sure that we are technologically savvy, that we have the apps that are going to keep kids engaged. But we also have to extend outside of our doors. We want to make sure that our families are able to connect with us. So we are, using the money or funds that we're getting from grants from the government, COVID relief grants, to purchase computers for our students. We also have hotspots that we lend to our families and to our employees. Some of our employees need hotspots in order to communicate with us. We purchase Zoom bundles so that when we speak to our parents, we are not limited to speaking to 90 parents at a time, that we could possibly have a meeting where 300 people can participate. So you really do have to take a look at the frame of how you do your work and how you need to expand technology to accommodate the work that you're doing.
And
Okay.
building off of that, I know specifically in offices, I think controllability has definitely always been a sticking point, where how much controllability to occupants do we want to give? And on how, is it an individual basis? What about shared spaces? But going back to kind of the indoor air quality portion, we are seeing the request to install monitors in occupied spaces where people can see kind of real time the quality of the air in the space that they're in, whether it's a large meeting room or an open kind of collaborative area. That's actually incorporated into the WELL building standard about requiring those in spaces where people can see those kind of metrics. And then a kind of total left turn, we do a lot of airport work. And the technology we've seen most recently be requested from a lot of airport authorities is in bathrooms. When was a bathroom last cleaned? How many passengers have gone through that bathroom? Again, as Jennifer mentioned, we want sensor operated faucets and soap dispensers, reducing the amount of touch points, but also showing people, when this was cleaned, who it was cleaned by, if there's been any issues, and kind of having a feedback mechanism where, you've all seen those little polls of, happy face or smiley face or sad face. And if you have a sad face and you can leave a comment about what was wrong with that experience, the facility is then able to send out someone to rectify that. So it's kind of real time loop of staying on top of now just cleanliness, but before it was seen more as a passenger perception. Now really has to do with keeping everyone healthy and safe.
Okay. All right. And I just want to remind the attendees that if you have questions, please put it in the chat if you have questions for our panelists, and we'll try to get to your questions or get them answered as quickly as we can. Jennifer, not Jennifer, Aaron, I'm sorry, Aaron, will we see more design for hybrid and hub and spoke in the workplace? Do you think that's going to be a popular thing?
I mean, it was already kind of there a little bit with some of your WeWork spaces and such, but I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up really going more that direction. Especially, you might see companies open more regional hubs in local concentrations of where a lot of their employees are for, shared workspace. And it also wouldn't surprise me if you see something like headquarters kind of go to the wayside. Maybe not so much for like your Amazons and your Googles of the world. I think they'll always have a headquarters, but some of your other larger, capital firms, I think, might reconsider the investment of a huge, 4 floors in a high rise when they can easily take that money and invest it into some pretty cool touchdown hub spaces where, you know, across the country where they have a lot of their employees. It just might be a better investment long term, I think. And I like you said, I don't think the flexibility people are going to want to give up so easily as well. So.
And that segues right into the portfolio management that I alluded to before. You can have a broader footprint of touching more regions if you have small decentralized hubs that people can go to, so they have a choice: headquarters, home, the hub. You know.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. So does anyone else want to comment on that? No, we're good? All right, Jennifer, what are we seeing in office space layout that wasn't there before? Like, what's new? What can we look forward to? And also talk about the things that we used to see that just aren't coming back anymore.
Well, let's start with the easy one. What we used to see is just like a sea of benching, which are your workstations, rows and rows. That's definitely going away because you're just not going to have the occupancy 100% to fill all. So it's a huge waste of square footage to have vacant desks. Some of the things we're seeing become more prevalent have always been around, but they were like Plan C ideas. So you have your lounge space, you have your town halls where you've got maybe bistro seating and a big video screen where you can do group meetings. You've got unassigned task space, and that's really geared toward people who come in, land, need to work and collaborate, but they're not there all the time. So we used to call that hoteling. I guess we still do, but it was really like one space was designated for hoteling. Now we're talking about half your desks are actually designed to be for multiple people to come. They're cleaned every day at the end of the day, but multiple people will come and just park themselves there, be able to get connectivity, and then do their tasks and collaborate with their team members. So that's pretty much what I was thinking of when I thought of what's really happening.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. We hate the word cubes, but I think, like, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of you have also agreed that over the years, these workstations, the partitions have becoming a little bit lower and lower. Whereas when we first rolled them out, 20 some years ago, 30 years ago, they were literally like boxes on the floor. I wouldn't be surprised, like you had said earlier, if we start raising these partition heights higher, maybe not with paneling, but maybe with glass, so you can still have that visual connectivity. But it's probably the least expensive way to morph the open office, as opposed to, starting from scratch all over again. It's just to kind of modify the existing spaces. But I think that's still evolving.
Oh, now she's on mute.
I know. Would anyone else like to respond to that? Okay, so we have a question from our attendees, and someone asked, has anyone seen actual real projects based on the ideas in the recent online book by the Design Collaborative of ways to create outdoor school classrooms by the Design Collaborative?
Have not.
Nope, not yet.
Because I know on some campuses, college campuses, in the warmer weather, when they first started transitioning back to the college campuses, that some of them were having classes on the lawns, on the grounds. And it wasn't a permanent fixture yet, but that's what a lot of campuses and colleges were talking about, as far as at least having kids back on the campus, but the only way they could really spread out would be outdoors. So you guys haven't seen anything like that from classrooms? And even in the elementary schools, they have classes on the stairs. Like some newer schools are being built with the steps, and they have classes on the steps inside the school that gives children an opportunity to spread out.
You just gave me a great idea, so thank you for that. That's an aha moment right there. So I would think that.
I can see your face. Your face was looking like.
I was like, yeah. But I think that's a great idea. Unfortunately for our region, you know, it's going to be seasonal. And you notice that most college kids are home for the summer, so you'll only be able to get the benefit of that late spring, early fall. That would be, I would say that that would be for colleges and for schools. But I like the idea of thinking outside the box. You know, thinking outside of classrooms and looking for those spaces like stairwells and things like that. I think that's you know, very creative way, a very creative approach to doing things differently.
So I
And
was just, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Stacey. I apologize. No, I said I was recently just informed that Temple does have 6 outdoor classroom spaces. I couldn't comment on them because I personally was not involved in the design of those. But they are seasonal and they are utilized during warmer months. I'm not sure. I wonder if that's something that maybe we would even continue when the world ever corrects itself, just as a versatility option for another learning space, another environment. But yeah, so to stand corrected, Temple does have 6 outdoor spaces.
Oh, nice. So Jennifer, just in general from the industry, what are you hearing about construction? How are buildings being built now? Are they being built completely differently? You know, there's some information that's out there that talks about people are putting a lot of money into making these high-tech buildings now because of COVID. What are your thoughts about that?
I think the technology and the mechanical system are 2 areas where people are trying to make sure that they get the air flow, the air cleaning that they need. Operable windows are coming back into style. They weren't for quite a while. And Megan was alluding to friendlier materials that don't off-gas. Recycled content is a big deal now. Even for your construction materials, not just your interior finishes. You have to look at all this though in a balance of budgetary requirements. And I think that the airflow and things like that are probably at the top of the list because they're the most easy to have an effect.
Okay. So now someone asked, one of the attendees asked, are companies looking into purchasing stackers for existing cubicle walls? We went from 72-inch divided walls to 54-inch, and now we are considering going back to 72.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm definitely seeing it in requests from clients in new renovations that we're doing, where we are having people in workstations. They were always particular, I think, about having a higher panel. People always like having their privacy, but now it's even another leg to stand on is wanting a taller partition. I guess the way you balance that is by using, you know, glass or plexi on top of maybe a traditional fabric panel, so that you still have the visibility, but yet you feel a little bit safer. I don't know if paneling, it's not a 100% fix all. So it's definitely, you know, it's preventative to some ways, I'm sure, but it's not necessarily the end all be all option for COVID-19. But it is funny. It is something that I see coming back around is people asking for taller partitions.
I see that too. One thing we look at also is, are you facing somebody? Can we simply rotate your desk and create a better situation? So sometimes it could be a combination of a physical intervention or just a rearrangement of the way people are situated.
Yeah, we have changed our classroom structure so that the teacher is sitting on one end of the room and the teaching assistant is sitting on the other end of the room. Prior to COVID, they were facing each other, their desks were facing each other. So those are the small changes that you have to make.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to product, I'm going to start with you, Jennifer. When it comes to product, what are you seeing people doing more of? Is it more sit-stand desks? Is it more, you know, smaller conference room tables, task chairs? What are you seeing people doing more of? Are they still doing more workstations? What are you finding people product-wise are doing more of?
Sit-stand is a very big thing now. and it's not that difficult to implement. And a lot of people are looking for that, just for the wellness aspect, the perception that the company cares, and people are asking for it. What was the other part of your question? It had to do with
conference rooms. Are they looking for smaller conference?
Yep, conference rooms are interesting now because people need to collaborate more, and people are actually looking for more conference rooms, less workstations. But a conference room can only accommodate so many people with the distancing that we're imparting on folks these days. So a conference room actually is almost like a dead space. If it's too small to accommodate the kind of group you need, a town hall is a better option because it's all open air.
Anyone else would like to comment on that?
I think Jennifer brings up a really good point about the conference room, where previously, maybe you have your large room that accommodates 20 people, that now it's, one person per corner of the table, and you're all in the same room, and maybe you're sharing, a shared task, but you're still keeping that physical distance. So I think there's a balance from making those collaboration spaces too small moving forward. There's an interesting, balance of people want their own personal space. So you want them to have a workspace that they feel comfortable in, that is their own, that they can be distanced from their neighbor, but also still giving the real estate and square footage to collaborative spaces where, they're not so close to somebody that they feel, that they're compromising themselves in any sort of health capacity. But you still need the opportunity to have those discussions and, those meetings in person. Some things you can't fix with Zoom. So I think it's a balance.
And that was going to be, that leads right into my next question, which is about onboarding. What are you guys seeing as far as new employees, onboarding new employees in companies? What is that looking like now?
So I can speak to that. I had about 4 interviews today. Typically, of course, we would have those interviews in the building, but now they're all Zoom interviews. And the onboarding is once they come into the building. In many situations, they are meeting with individual people, but they're also receiving their training through Zoom. And so, it just opens them up into the environment in which we are living in. It's very different because you really, for my school, I feel like I don't know a lot of the people because they're not in the building. They are not like, you don't see them much. And so, it creates a little distance, and you have to make a little bit more effort to kind of get to know people, I would say.
That's very true. We actually hired an assistant project manager on March 12th last year. She has never been in the office. And so not only do we have staff meetings, but I make sure that we have like get-togethers just to socialize via Zoom and Teams. I mean, Teams is like ubiquitous at this point, but just to try to get some of that socialization that you need so that you feel like you're part of a unit.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Just to minimize it.
I think that's even hard with existing teams where your collaboration was already there, and then you had to, everybody started working from home again. So even the employees that I think we took advantage of being able to see everybody every day and just walk to someone's desk and get a quick response or an answer on something or even an opinion about something. And now it's just such a different process to even get that option. It turns into an email, it turns into a Zoom meeting, you have to get it scheduled. I just feel like it's really hindered the process a little in some ways.
Right, and you're not going to email somebody and say, hey, I tried out this new recipe last night. You want to hear about it?
There's definitely more effort that has to be taken on everyone.
Go ahead, Stacy.
I was going to say, so it also delays Sorry about that. It also delays the process because you have these emails and it's like 4 or 5 emails before you can get to the final answer. Whereas if you had just walked over and met with someone, you can get that problem solved in 10, 15 minutes.
This is what happens. This is what happens when you're on Zoom. Stuff is happening around you, right? As we get closer to the wrap up, I want to ask this question and would love if all of you could respond to it to the best of your knowledge. There's a lot of people that have attended the webinar, dealers, manufacturers, industry professionals, architecture, design. What can we do today to prepare for tomorrow's workplace? What can we do? Who wants to start?
I can start. This is Megan. The first thing that immediately came to mind was designing for flexibility, which is an innovation credit in the LEED rating system. But I feel like, in the way we were used to doing things, everyone has a schedule, everyone needs to be in their space by a certain time. So the extra step into thinking about how movable partitions or flexible meeting rooms or furniture plays into how a space can be adapted. We could be a little blinded by the program that the client, wants for today. But as designers, you really need to build into that, okay, what is something that would be unexpected? Let's give an example of a global pandemic where we all need to move and work from home for approaching a year. How does what happens to all of that furniture? Can it be reused? Can it be reconfigured? Is there a way to make sure that people have a place to return to that is collaborative, that does support health and safety? And just having that be flexible as opposed to, well, we need to throw out this whole plan and start over. There needs to be an adaptability that's worked into the design process and thought about from day one. And that goes from the landlord who maybe owns the building of a tenant space that you are leasing to the, how your employees work. Allowing someone to work from home for the morning and then maybe transition into the office in the afternoon, just so that you're spreading out, people throughout the day and having the cleaning in between that makes everyone feel comfortable to do that.
Right.
And I would say that, people at this point, people want to know that the space that they work in is a safe space, right? So, that they want to know that they can see the evidence of sanitation and cleanliness, and they want to see that people are taking care of the offices, and they want to see that you really mean what you say about social distancing, that you're requiring that and you are holding people accountable to that. And I think that as we continue along this road and we have more people working at home, we have to build capacity around integrity in the workspace, right? Because there are so many people who were used to working in the office, and you can hold people accountable in the office. But when you're not in the office, there's a level of education that you have to you have to teach a different way of working with people, right? Because they're used to working in the office, and everyone can be accountable for what they're doing inside the building. So I think that a lot of employers will have to take some time to talk about what are the expectations out of the office, and your accountability out of the office, things like that. I know that for our teachers, they just wanted to know that they were safe when they came in. And in addition to putting the plexiglass in the buildings, we decided that we were going to invest in ultraviolet filtrations in our system, so that we can improve the air quality. So you have to think along those lines, like, what is it that you need to do in your building that's going to keep people happy, it's going to keep them safe, it's going to keep them connected to your organization.
Just kind of commenting on Stacy too. I think going forward, there's this new level of trust and respect that maybe was there before, but has even maybe built a lot since this past year's happened with employees and employers. You know, like you said before, we were in an office, there was accountability. You could see someone when they were working physically at their desk. It's not like that now, and people's work days are so different than they were. They're not the 9 to 5, even though that was kind of slipping to begin with. But I think it's important that, like, if deadlines are put before somebody, and you know, as long as they are met, you know, you can truly, you know, trust and the respect for your employees and your employer, that there's this symbiotic relationship, that just because you're not, unfortunately, seeing each other every day the way you used to, that you're still working towards a common goal and you're still hitting your marks. So, I mean, I think if you were to ask if we could have done our jobs from home full time a year ago, I probably would have told you there's no way.
Right.
But now that we're in it, I will say I feel just as productive, if not more, some days. And you know, and it has its highs and its lows. But I do think that I really rely on my teammates more than ever, and they really do deliver. You know, even sometimes faster than we did when we were in the office together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So to wrap it up after the three of you, I feel like we have to embrace the new operating norm, and we have to expect that there will be changes over time. And we have to be open and creative. And I feel like, you know how every year they have a couple words of the year, but I feel like this is a word for the decade, 2020 to 2030, and it's pivot. We have to be able to pivot.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to pivot, I would say that you have to create the work life and home life balance. I don't know about the rest of you, but I work harder when I am remote, and a lot of our, you know, our family members here feel like we work harder because of the way that we're working and the distance that we have with one another. So you have to make sure that you're creating that work-life balance in a different way. Home and work balance in a different way.
Right, right. But I agree, Jennifer. Pivot is the word of 2021. Yes, it is. Ladies, I cannot thank you enough. I know Brewer is muted still. I'm not sure, but I cannot thank you all enough for participating in our Fireside Chat of Brand New Worlds, as well as the attendees. On behalf of Brewer Kirshner of Kirshner Office Furniture, we thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Sure.